Hello, Dan Grossman here, and I am doing a presentation in relation to our readings for class this week on John Merrick and disabilities. Um, my article is titled How a Revered Studio for Artists with Disabilities is Surviving at a Distance. And the article was published in the New Yorker, September 24th, 2020. The the writer of the article is one Dan Pieperbring, and the subject of the article is creative growth in Oakland, California, and it's described as a place for artists with disabilities to gather, work, and talk and think without fear of reproach or dismissal. The organization opened in 1974 in response to the recent closures at that point of many psychiatric hospitals in California. As a result, there was a spike in homelessness and incarcerated, and a spike also in incarcerated people with disabilities. Creative growth has been able to nurture the talents of many disabled individuals, some who have even found international success with their artwork. Um, Pieperbring's article profiles several artists with disabilities who, since the onset of the pandemic, haven't been able to access regular services at the Art Center. Some have been able to access virtual instruction services through Zoom, some have not. Some have made do setting up makeshift studios in their assisted living facilities. Pieperbring writes, as their artists endure month after month of quarantine, creative growth faces an extreme version of the dilemmas that other art organizations and educational institutions have struggled with during the pandemic. If your purpose is to foster the ideal conditions for learning and making things together, how do you proceed when these conditions are suddenly impossible? I think, we've all had to adjust to some degree to the pandemic using Zoom and such. Like, hey, I'm doing that now. But if you're developmentally disabled, it's an additional challenge. Um, so this article details the lives of some of the clients who must adjust to this new normal, and the creative growth staff who have had to do some really interesting innovations to facilitate their clientele during this new normal. And sometimes they have to improvise, go to the assisted living facilities where their clients live and set up Zoom calls for them and such. So that's what they're doing. Um, Pieperbring writes, creative growth artists have a resilience particular to those who move through the world with a disability. The article talks about how the clientele have been dismissed their whole lives, for whom not being able to go to a restaurant or gym is a normal situation, but now the clientele is facing additional challenges during this pandemic. Okay, and then we get to our readings. We see some parallels in our recent readings for class, particularly the one by Sir Frederick Treves, who recounts the story of John Merrick, aka the Elephant Man, a man a man with deformities that made it impossible for him to interact with society unassisted. Um, Merrick is an example of an individual who, through eventually, through the philanthropy of the English public, was able to live a dignified life by, late 19th century standards, at least, uh, uh, by being given free room and board by the London Hospital. Like creative growth clientele, Merrick also showed much resilience. According to Treves, Merrick showed himself to be gentle, affectionate, and a lovable creature. He adds, Treves adds, I have never heard him once deplore his ruined life. It's useful to view this article also through the lens of Rosemary Garland Thompson's Extraordinary Bodies, her book, where she posits that in accordance to postmodernism's premise that the margin constitutes the center, I probe the peripheral so as to view the whole in a fresh way. Okay, so by interrogating the labeling of disabled as deviant, she is questioning the normative. In a way, creative growth is doing this questioning in real life by assuming that there is just as much value in artwork by a cognitively challenged individual as there is in, say, the work of Picasso. And some of these artists that they've served have gone on to reach international success, which kind of proves our point. And likewise, Peeperbring interrogates the work of creative growth clients without reference to the client's particular disability. Rather than challenge the assumptions that Peeperbring brings to his perspective as writer, Thompson's stance seems to reinforce them. So that's my write-up or my presentation here. And my question for you all is, and this is because I go to a lot of First Friday art walks. Imagine you are going to see visual art during a First Friday art walk in Indianapolis. Would it affect your opinion about the worth of the work in a particular show if you knew beforehand that those artists were developmentally disabled? And that's just a question to consider. And I look forward to your responses, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening.